dialed your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. So let's waste no time. Oh, yeah, the gingerbread man is cooking. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Patrol increase around the holidays. Local police plan to increase patrolling for the rest of the year. According to local reports, the patrolling will focus on businesses and the roadways for extra holiday security. Story number 2. What will health improvement zones do? Now, it appears that the city's health district has announced 4 locations that will be located on each side of Youngstown. So 4 locations located on each side of Youngstown. Now, these designations will be labeled health improvement zones. Now, the city plans to use about $2,466,488. Dang, that's a lot of money. Of the American Rescue Plan funding for the program. Story number 3. School zones could see a major change soon. 16 school zones in Youngstown is set to get unstaffed speed cameras with automatic license plate readers next year. Story number 4. Local housing market in the headlines. Now, it was a matter of time before a Valley real estate story made it into the headlines. According to a local report published November 25th, home sales in the Valley have taken a dip. That's not good. Now, what got the story in is because a few mayoral candidates ran on increasing Valley residency and improving old rundown neighborhoods. Story number 5. Is the Valley in the giving mood? The question this year is, if you have the ability to give, will you? Apparently, Hubbard is in the giving mood with thousands being raised to transform an old school into a wellness center. The plan is to remodel and renovate the former Roosevelt School and turn it into a community wellness center. Some donations received were in the $10,000 range. So Hubbard right now is in the giving spirit. That's what this holiday season is all about. Story number 5. Big headline. Story number 6. How many people did the rescue mission serve? According to a front page article published November 25th, the rescue mission served about 500 people for Thanksgiving. The story made it in because food banks and many local nonprofits continue to see an uptick in people needing assistance. This is one of those stories that is staying alive, because when people need assistance, that's not good when the governing goes on, because the governing has to stretch that money dollar. Story number 6 almost made it to the top 2 this week. Shout out to all the nonprofits out there still in the battle to achieve and carry out their mission statement. Big headline. Story number 7 in the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Come on, Tito. Come on. Ain't but a short walk. Come on. What y'all do, Tito? What y'all do, Carl? The city needs good leadership, Carl, Tito. All the officials down there, Kyle, me and Sack. Come on, what you gonna do? Let's play. Let's go over a story or something about the holidays. Let's get in the holiday spirit. What you gonna light the tree, Tito? Tito? Whew. Story number 7. Top 2 stories that made it this week. Staffing issues continue, folks. Staffing and wages. And some people are wondering why I'm calling out Tito. What you gonna do? The mayor. What you gonna do? You get people off their property, Tito. We got to live. What you gonna do about the residency, Tito? The businesses. You gonna get some money, some wages money. Staffing issues and continue. Story number 7. Wages and staffing continue to remain a top concern, folks, for workers and local employers. They need money, lots of money. Around the holidays, employers are still voicing their concerns about the quality of workers, while employers are still concerned about, employees Employers and employees are still concerned about COVID and pay. So even the employer is concerned about where their paycheck may come from while having to pay employees. This is local stuff. And the banks are supposed to give the loans, but if the business ain't making no money, the business got to go out of business. Businesses are in the fight for their establishment, folks, to make a profit. And these days, their main grievance is that government policies, sometimes local policies, Tito, what are you going to do? Tito, parking tickets, Tito. Carl, why you locking me up? I can't even pay my bills. How am I going to pay a parking ticket, Carl? Policies, these policies, the government, local policies are not making it any easier, folks. The topic at hand is how do you turn a profit when you have to pay out more than you bring in? And this is for nonprofits as well. This story is still developing. And if minimum wage goes up, it could get worse. Story number 7. That's why I made it to the top 2 this week. Maybe it helped. Story number 8. And the top local headline and developing news story that I made it this week for you. Merry Christmas, baby. Jimmy didn't do me right. They have a merry little Christmas and have a good night. It's that time of year again, folks. Story number 8. The top story for Tito. Tito, man, just yesterday I saw Tito and Michael dance on stage. I never thought I'd see a Youngstown mayor with the name Jamel Tito Brown. What a privilege it is to be a mayor with that much strength and power. Tito, ooh, ooh, hee hee, yeah. Little drummer boy, Tito. That's right, that's right. Ooh. Story number 8. American medical response still seeking financial help. I love everybody. I even love Youngstown's mayor, so I hope he's all right in these hard times in Youngstown. I hope he's trying to find a way for the city to be blessed. Story number 8. The American medical response story is staying alive. And it's not looking so good right now when Jeff Libyan is in the news. Now, the ambulance provider is seeking a subsidy of $1.8 million to $2.6 million to continue providing ambulance services in the city of Youngstown. Or this is according to a front page article of the Mediator. It says this article is published December 1st. They said the company will pull out of serving the city if they don't get this money, if they don't get a subsidy. Now, these are according to the article, this is the only company that has put in a proposal to serve the city of Youngstown. Youngstown is in a tough environment right now. The article goes on to make the valid point that AMR is the only company that submitted a proposal to serve the city as an ambulance service. As I stated, the goal seems to be 4 ambulance vans or these little trucks, little Ghostbuster trucks they ride around for the city. Now, the biggest asset keeping this story alive is money. The life-saving business costs money, folks. If we don't see this ambulance service providing, we may see Tito. Tito. We may see him driving around the city in his own Cadillac Escalade, bought by the taxpayer. And we may see him ride around the city with Justin Jennings for the scholars, saving lives. Story number 8 is still developing. And the clock is ticking because we don't have much time before the ambulance service could. Contract is up. That's why story number 8 made it to the top 2. Well, folks, those are the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. So don't you go anywhere. You're in the Mediator. Me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm Brian West, host of the Mediator.
And I'm Olivia.
Please join us this year, December 17th at 6 p.m. for our holiday program called Sounds of the Season. The event will be located at Shepherd of All God's Children at 610 North Lakeview Avenue in Youngstown, Ohio. The event will be a Give What You Can event.
All proceeds will be given back to the school and Methodist Arts program. If you want to help us out more, go to 5648 Market Street, Boardman, Ohio.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week, folks. It is that holly jolly time of year again, and I remember it like it was yesterday, you know. And I'm going to share this story with you because a friend of mine who's a vendor at the store, Linda, she comes in and she's telling me about her kids and these shoes, these obsession with shoes. And it brought back some memories how I used to be when I was a kid. And these kids are brainwashed, folks. They're brainwashed to think about one thing, and that's being good kids. Folks, I remember when I got cut from the basketball team. And next year, I thought that if I had a certain pair of shoes, I'm sure y'all know, sometimes I dream that he is me. Can't you see that's how I dream to be? I dream not groove. I dream not move like Mike. Well, folks, I was convinced that if I got these pair of shoes that I would make the basketball team when I was a kid. Yep. My mother spent all this money. Not realizing that I did not have the skills to play the game yet. Getting these shoes did not make me any better. I got worse. Because I kept shooting thinking I was going to make it. Folks, this Christmas, teach your kids about something more in life. You'd be better off teaching them about something magical. Like God in the holiday. The real reasons why the holidays exist. Frightening when you're out there and you're getting booed, kicked off the court, and some joy. Well, you know, Mike's I dreamed not boo. Well, folks, that's my story. Shout out to Linda. I hope she understands that these kids are brainwashed. There's nothing we can do. We can't convince them. Couldn't convince me until I got older. And I realized that I had to develop, I had to shoot, I had to practice. And then I could possibly get my own shoe. Well, folks, let's waste no time. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Christianity is in decline in major parts of the world. Speaking of God, we are in the most wonderful time of year, folks, especially for Christians, but there is a but. A new CNN report says that England and Wales are no longer majority Christian nations. The two British nations have fallen from 59% in 2011 to 46% in 2021. Now, in a time when Christians should be stronger than ever, many have fallen into the pit, according to most recent headlines. The story is still developing. That's why I crept in this week. Story number 1, big headline. Story number 2. Desperation equals major survivor stories, folks. People are doing desperate things to survive. That's a fact nowadays. One story says that 3 people were found sitting on a ship's rudder, and they survived an 11-day voyage from Nigeria. The story says that the migrants were shown perched on a rudder. They were actually on a ship's rudder and were discovered hitching a rod on an oil tanker on this rudder by the Coast Guard. Folks, if you thought you had it bad, there are people out there who have it twice as hard. They are on the edge. Life and death situations. That's why story number 2 crept in this week. Big. Story number 3. Gun stories continue to put a target on gun use. Folks, every week there has been a gun story according to one CNN report. America has reached a record number of deaths since 2021. Now the piece continues, the story continues with stats and research from an academic perspective. So it's telling you the research, the guns, what guns have done, good and bad. It's giving you an academic perspective. Now, how people snap is the main concern that we should be worried about, and how people turn to guns as a solution to their problems is another concern. Now, after a numbing ripple effect of mass shootings, this story is still developing. 12 people were shot in Chicago over Thanksgiving weekend, including a 14-year-old boy walking through a vacant lot. Story number 3, once again, is keeping the gun stories alive, and what we can do about it is the biggest question. Big headline. Story number 4, old school love may be the cure for today's youth. Could it? Back in the day, it was not normal for a child to get an adult's business. Today, it is in some situations. Back in the day, a child was allowed to be disciplined by their parents. Today, they're not allowed to be disciplined in some circumstances, some situations. Some parents don't care. They will snatch a child up. They will put them in a corner. They will take away their meal, take away their allowances, all different ways to punish a child. Now, I could go on and on and on, but it's evident that even with plenty, some old school ways of love are still needed to cure today's youth. Now, one Fox News report says that police have discovered the remains of 4 infants in a Boston apartment. That's sad news, especially around this time of year. Now, another headline in the BBC says that a teen was charged with murder after police say he killed someone and asked an Instagram friend to help him get rid of the body. Folks, these stories like these how they emerge show that many of today's youth have taken a turn when compared to some who actually mean well and still receive that good old school love. So this story proves that we could be in a tight situation when it comes to today's children, and the fact that they could be in need of some old school lessons and some old school teachings and some old school love or some old school remedies, which is just pure and old school. And I don't want to say the word woman, but that we don't want to take it there because we want to show them love. Well, folks, those are our top 4 international headlines in developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 4. So don't you go anywhere. You're in the Mediator, me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. Go to the website. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, I have to share this with you. This is the holiday season. And it is a season of Christianity. Now, there are so many stories that have lived throughout the ages. You have Egyptian stories, ancient Kemet. You have Samaritan stories. You have stories from different countries, different religions. But the story of Christ has lived on, and it's an amazing story. You know, this story is so powerful, I'm not even going to lie to you. When I got injured on active duty serving the country, it kept me alive. I would read these stories, unbelievable stories in the Bible. And some people are so into these stories because they bring you alive. They make you realize things, power within yourself. But who would have ever thought that a story, whether white people, black people, whatever, the black Jesus, white Jesus, whatever, whoever thought that a story could live this long? Amazing story. A mother gets impregnated with God's child while in a relationship, has to flee a leader, and the child is born with unbelievable gifts to heal. That's an amazing story. You know, and I mean, some people, but they think about all these stories that are told every day. I mean, every day of my life, I'm looking at things, and I keep getting up, and I'm reading this story. And you thinking about, like, wow, that's. If you thought it's your story about life, you know, some people are born with spoons, and born on a spoon, and born in a supermarket, big box store like Wally World or something, and they're listening to radio music, and next thing you know, they're popping out babies at Mickey D's or something. Unbelievable story. But the story of this holiday season has stayed alive somehow. Magical, isn't it? Well, let's get to those other stories. I mean, how do you think about that? I mean, miracles. And I used to wonder, when my grandmother used to take me to church, why are these women getting up doing backflips and hallelujah, yeah. The story is powerful. Kept me alive. I believe it. That's all you got to do is believe it, folks. Well, folks, got through that. Hang on, mistletoe. I'm gonna get to know you better. Let's get to it. Story number 5. The migration stories won't stop, folks. 50 illegal immigrants hidden in a junkyard big rig. Junkyard big rig, folks. 5 accused of human smuggling arrested in Texas. These are the stories that's making headlines. Fox News reports that over 8,000 Mexican nationals have sought refugee status in 2022. That's 5 times as many as last year. That's a lot. So the migration stories continue. Now, another report by Fox News says that an increasing number of Mexican asylum seekers are headed to Canada. Canada plans to bring in more Mexicans to put in there, or more immigrants to put in their workforce. So that could be why. The reports that migrants are bringing back from their own homeland are also in the headlines, but because they're about the same. Some of these people are saying that they're fleeing their country because their native country is like living in a war zone, according to recent reports. Now, there are also reports of threats being made from cartel members inside of these stories, and that's why these migrants are fleeing. This story is still developing. So story number 5 made it this week. Story number 6. The Russian who stole Christmas. How sad is that? Putin made the decision to attack other Russians. He made the decision to attack Ukraine. Therefore, Putin's name is on the war with Ukraine. Now, Putin is using winter as a weapon, according to a USA Today article. Russia has also postponed nuclear arms control talks with the U.S., according to a CNN Politics report. Now, the Biden administration is now blaming Russia for postponing a meeting to discuss a key nuclear arms control agreement between the two countries. Now, another piece deserving attention, another report, is a piece in The Atlantic describing the future of American warfare and how it is unfolding in Ukraine. This story is like another, still developing. Almost made it to the top 2 this week. Big headline. Story number 7 in the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. This Christmas, folks, I could have been anything in my life. Could have been a doctor. Could have been a teacher. I decided to serve, and I'm deciding to voluntarily give you my time as a mediator, to tell you stories of inspiration, stories of trials and triumph. This is for you. This is my present. Folks, I come in here every week, late nights, while somebody's laid up with some of probably my old girlfriends, having a good time, out doing their thing, Christmas parties. But I'm sacrificing my time, as I've always done, for the greater good. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I've been beat up. I've been sometimes embarrassed, humiliated, screamed at, called names. But I keep rising up like the sun on Sunday morning for you. Give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. Let's get to story number 7. Story number 7, how America changed the COVID fight. Folks, the Chinese protesters say police are seeking them out, as new reports continue to make headlines about how thousands in China look to the streets because they're demanding an end to COVID-19 lockdown. So they're taking to the streets, protesting and fighting back. They're even trying to get to the leader, Xi Jinping. Now, this story is very different compared to the American strategy. How people in America have stood up and fought back against government rule in the COVID fight has really changed how the entire world is fighting this virus. The story is still developing because America has changed the fight against COVID. Some say it's for the good and some say it's for the bad. Story number 7. That's why I made it to the top this week. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week, folks. If I do one thing, I hope that I'm an inspiration to you. I hope that I'm your coffee in the morning. I hope that I give you the ability to get up and just Do something positive with your time. I don't know everything. I've only been on this earth for 40 years, but I'm doing something for you to give you a present, a gift, mediation. Something special about that. And you should feel special about it. This is all I have left to give, folks. Folks, I've been dragged through this earth, and I've seen the greatness of year after year of getting up and what it does in the atmosphere. It changes things. It gives people the ability to they believe that they themselves can rise up on Christmas morning with nothing under the tree but a feather. But there is something. There's hope. And then when the doorbell rings and somebody knocks and they leave the gift of one thing, a newspaper, and all you have to do is read it. And then you find out years later that around this time of year, you too, one day as a little chitlin, not knowing everything, will grow up to tell stories. How great, hallelujah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Story number 8. Education could be on the top of Santa's Christmas list. Speaking of reading the paper. Folks, Slate reports that teachers are drowning and students are too. The article's main objective seems to be on what COVID has done to the current state of the education system. But there's more to this story. Now, another story by Fox News says that our children aren't being taught to read, and the nation is in need of a national commitment to save their futures. Children. Either way, America's getting a huge dose of education awareness, folks, and education could be on the top of Santa's Christmas list this year, folks. Education remains a top concern. That's the top story this week, folks. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle, soaking up all the news stories to report and find the best ones that made it in, folks. Well, folks, if you want to show us some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program. Or you can stop at the store at 5648 Market Street and buy something as well. Well, folks, I am out of here. I'll be back next week looking through over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed. The countdown begins. The countdown to Christmas blessings. Well, folks, I am out of here. Have a good week. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator. Be Brian West. Peace.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.